Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1157B, and today's date is December 20th, 2016, and the title of the episode is The Elite's Plans Are Failing. Next plan, an all-out event. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Today, I put up an interview with Harley Schlanger on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. And all you need to do is go to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It should bring you right to the YouTube channel, and you can play the video there. Or you can come on over to the X22Report.com site, scroll down a little bit, it'll be on your right-hand side. Same thing with NewsSentinel.com. Go to the site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, and you will see the video there, and you can play it right on the site. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the U.S. government and the CIA, they were out there trying to convince the American public that Russia was hacking the DNC, the Clinton campaign, the election system. And Ben Swan, he brought up some good points of why all of this couldn't be true. And he explained that the CIA, well, they didn't formally release a report about Russia's hacking. Rather, an anonymous source inside the agency allegedly leaked the conclusion to the Washington Post and the New York Times. Now, this is problematic because how do you prove it? How do you verify it? Both the source and the information, they don't exist. Leaking this supposed information to the corporate press represents the easiest way to launch this propaganda, and they don't have to give proof. And this is exactly what happened. All those electors who wanted to have the intelligence briefing, they weren't briefed. Congress wanted to have the intelligence information, and the CIA said no. So right there and then, it tells us they're lying. The other problem with this is that CIA investigators, they don't unanimously agree on the assessment that Russia hacked those systems. And in the beginning, the overseers, the Director of National Intelligence, the FBI, they didn't agree with the CIA. I mean, later they flip-flopped, but in the beginning, they were not in agreement because there was no evidence. And the other reason is Julian Assange and Craig Murray, who's the British ambassador to Uzbekistan, who knows Julian Assange, says, nope, we know who the leakers are, and they were not Russian. So everything that they were putting out, and everything that the CIA was trying to tell the American public, was false. And just because a report sounds official coming from the CIA or any other agency, does not give it instant viability. Remember, the government and these agencies, they have to show the evidence to the American people. If they cannot show the evidence to the American people, it is pure propaganda, and we do not have to believe them. Now, out in the South China Sea, we see that China, well, it has returned the U.S. underwater drone, and we can see right now they want to keep friendly relations with the U.S. They returned it. And we can see, hopefully, that provocation that the U.S. was trying to stir up there is over. It doesn't mean they're not going to try something else. Most likely, they will. We see Russian President Putin, he signed a law on ratification of protocol that expands and simplifies visa-free border crossing with Norway for border area residents. And they signed this, and now the individuals can move freely back and forth. The amendments to the bilateral agreement provide for visa-free entry for the citizens to visit places in Norwegian village of Neiden related to the liberation of northern Norway from Nazi invaders in 1944 by the Soviet Army. Previously, parts of the village were not covered by the agreement, and Russians were unable to freely visit the Second World War memorials. Now, Turkey is going to continue their military operations in Syria, and the Turkish foreign minister said Ankara will continue its anti Islamic State operation in Syria, and part of the ceasefire does not include al-Nusra, al-Sham, the Islamic State. And right now we can see that this entire area in Syria is being taken over and controlled by Syria and the Russian forces. The Syrian Arab Army officially entered the eastern Aleppo neighborhoods, and they've taken control. And this is the first time they've entered the area in the last 4 years. And they still have other areas to clear out in this city, but we can see right now they are definitely taking control of the situation. And the United States government, the central bankers, their terrorist groups that they use, well, they're in big trouble. And what's very interesting is that the Syrian representative to the UN said that they have evidence that there's foreign agents in Aleppo. And he says there's a lot of foreign intelligence officers who are working side by side with the terrorists. And they have the list of their names. And what they're saying is they have this list, and we reported on this in past report from Vanessa Beeley, where, yes, they do have these individuals, and they are picking them up. And we can see that he's saying that they're trying to escape Aleppo and trying to get out of the area. And he's saying this is a problem because we are looking at the situation, and it's not just terrorists. The U.S., Israel, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the U.K., Jordan, Morocco, they all have their intelligence officers inside of Syria, directing, controlling the terrorists. And we can see right now, this entire operation is falling apart around all these nations, and they're going to be found out. And it is going to be reported that they were supporting terrorism in Syria. They were the terrorists. Think about what's going on right now. And a journalist asked the Syrian authorities how they're going to deal with the foreign agents in question. And Bashar al-Jafari said, "We'll catch them and show you." So this is really not turning out well for the U.S. and the other nations, because those elites that thought that, oh, we'll just go into Syria, we'll just take over the government in Syria, well, the whole thing's falling apart, and now they're being exposed. And this should worry everyone, because they're not going to take this laying down. They're going to push their agenda fast forward ahead. Now, Russia, Turkey, and Iran, they are reaching an agreement that would promote the process of settling the Syrian crisis without sparing the terrorists. And Sergei Lavrov is reporting that they're very close into reaching an agreement here. And we can see that the United States is not included in this whatsoever, which tells you that the U.S. is being left out of this, and Russia is doing whatever they have to do with Syria to take care of business inside of Syria. Now, what's very interesting about all of this is that the corporate media, they are continually pushing fake news. Now, I know they're going after fake news, but we need to look at the stories that they've been telling about Syria. Were they true? Weren't they true? And they've been telling us that, in Aleppo, the city is being torn apart, ripped apart. The Western media reported claims that 250,000 people may be left in rebel-held areas and might die from starvation, water shortages, and lack of medical care. And they're saying that Russian officials, and the Syrian officials, they were killing individuals in Aleppo. But we come to find out that Russia and Syria, they were bringing in humanitarian aid. They were allowing thousands of people to pass through the corridors. opened by the Syrian army, we come to find out that the terrorists, they were the ones shooting the individuals. So the corporate media, once again, was pushing fake news. The corporate media was out there saying the Syrian army is blocking humanitarian aid in Aleppo, that they're creating this crisis, and the U.S. officials blame Syrian President Assad for ordering the army to block aid and delivery. And this was completely false once again, because it was the terrorist groups that were doing this. They were burning buses. They destroyed the humanitarian aid. They blew it up. We showed videos of this. And we can see right now that the stories that comes out of the corporate media, they are lies. They were saying that the rebels in East Aleppo are ordinary Syrians who are fighting a civil war against government abuse. Well, Colonel Steve Warren, spokesman for the U.S. coalition against the Islamic State, said it's primarily al-Nusra who holds Aleppo, that there really isn't civilians who are fighting this. Well, we know this. We know that these were paid mercenaries. We know that al-Sham had about 20,000 fighters in this area. We know al-Nusra had 25,000 fighters in this area. And all of this was created by the United States government, central bankers, the coalition forces, to remove Assad. I mean, even Representative Tulsi Gabbard, she came out and said, listen, under U.S. law, it is illegal for an American to provide money or assistance to Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or any other terrorist group. And the U.S. government has been violating this law for years. They've been supplying and aiding terrorists. So what we're seeing right now is there's no such thing as moderate rebels, as the corporate media likes to tell us, the government likes to tell us. They're all terrorists, so that's more fake news. And right now, we can see that it wasn't Assad who was pushing terror on the people, because we know from Amnesty International that the terrorists were using chemical weapons. They used sarin gas. They used chlorine gas. They would torture people, keep people in cages. They would behead people. They would rape people. So once again, the corporate media and the U.S. government were spewing fake news. This is why they're so worried about the truth, because the truth will always come out. And when they lose the narrative of the story, people are going to be looking to them and saying, what have you been doing there? Look what you've been doing to the people of these countries. And this is what they're most afraid of. And this is why they're not just going to sit back and say, hey, you know what? We'll just leave. It's not a big deal. No, they're not going to lose what they have, what they built, how much time they spent and billions of dollars that they've used to create this type of atmosphere where they're in control. They're not just going to leave it. They're going to use events to try to put things back to the way they were. And if they can't use the events to put things back to the way they were, and they don't go back to the way they were, they will push the next step. The next step is war. I mean, look what they've done already. In Berlin, we had this tractor trailer slam into booths at a Christmas market. Now, of course, they came right out saying it's terror. The Islamic State was out there saying, yeah, we did it, we claim responsibility, and we know they had nothing to do with this. This was an inside operation. The actual truck driver, well, he was dead before impact, shot. He was from Poland. There was someone in the passenger seat. And we can see right now, this all looks like a major false flag in this area. I mean, think about it. The Department of State was alerting U.S. citizens that there might be some type of terror attack on markets in the area. So they already knew they were going to do this, and they wanted U.S. citizens out of the way. So they already knew that this was going to go down. They already knew that this was planned, not by terrorism, but by the CIA, MI5, MI6, Mossad. And what happened was this truck, ran into a crowd of people, injured, killed many of them, and they picked up an individual, someone from Pakistan. Now, it's starting to look like this individual was maybe working with these agencies, because later on they just let him go and saying, oh, we've got the wrong person. The other person must be at large. We need to start a manhunt for this person. We've seen this before in other false flags. Why do they do this? To keep it going, to keep the fear going. Remember, 2017 is the election year for Merkel. What has she been doing? Well, $500 fine for anyone who has a negative story about her on social media. She wants to shut down social media because Russia is creating the stories. She wants censorship. And with this, if you notice, they removed that refugee story. They removed all of that, saying, no, it's not has nothing to do with refugees. This is terror. They're doing this so she can create additional laws. Maybe even put the country into a state of emergency, and maybe even bypass the elections, depending on how all this plays out. So we can see at this point that they are pushing their agenda because they don't want to lose control. And if we go with their line of thinking, when we had the mass shootings and they blamed it all on the gun, it's not the person. Well, isn't this the same thing? What should we do? Get rid of trucks? Because the truck is the weapon here. The truck did it. Well, no. Isn't it weird how, in this instance, it wasn't the truck, it was the person. But when there's a mass shooting, it's the gun, not the person. So we can see how they have a double standard here. It is always the person. The inanimate object doesn't do anything unless the person uses it. Their whole narrative just fell apart once again. Now, with the killing of the Russian ambassador, during this period of time, we know that Russia, Turkey, Iran, they were talking and coming up with a plan to take control of Syria. And the U.S. was not included in these talks. And it looks like their plan, and I'm talking about the elite, they were trying to separate Turkey and Russia and send Russia a message. And it looks like this plan failed because right now, Turkey and Russia are moving closer together. And it looks like there was another senior figure with the Russian Foreign Ministry that died from a gunshot wound at his Moscow flat just hours after the assassination of the Russian ambassador on Monday. And we can see right now that the elite, they are pushing their agenda. Now, we can see from all of this where they were trying to blame Gulen. They were trying to say, oh, look, it's a terror act. This is all being done to try to force Turkey and Russia apart at this point and send a message to Russia. And it doesn't seem like it's working. And we can see that this has all the earmarks of a CIA plot. And the elite's plan, it has failed once again. And even Sergei Lavrov was saying that they are confident that the main aim of those who plotted this barbaric thing was to undermine the process of normalization relations between Russia and Turkey. So where does this leave us? Well, the elite's plans, they're continually failing. They are not getting the outcomes that they want, which tells us that the next move is going to be a lot worse than what we've seen. Because think about it. They went to the next level where they shot a government official, a Russian ambassador. They're going to take this to the next level. Because at this point, their backs are against the wall. They have nothing to lose. They've lost Syria at this point. They're losing the Middle East. They're going to be losing control here in the United States. Trump just made it through the Electoral College. So we can see many things happening right now. And they don't care if they start a war. They don't care if it goes nuclear, as long as they can stay in power. And this is what should worry everyone at this point, because now they are becoming desperate. Now they are using whatever they need to get their way. And the next event that we will see is going to be a lot worse than what we've just seen, or what we've seen in the past. Because this is building right now. And these individuals, they're going to take this to the next level. And we're most likely going to see things we've never seen before. And they're going to try to play this off. They're going to try to convince the world that it was this group, this country, whatever they have to do to get their way. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.